Going on after Jane Park, eh? There's a story, Bob Dylan and Neil Diamond went on tour together, and it was a double bill, so some nights Bob Dylan opened, other nights Neil Diamond opened, and there's a little bit of bitterness about it. And the one night that Neil Diamond had to open, he walked off stage and he said to Bob Dylan, "Try follow that." And Bob Dylan said, "What do you want me to do, walk out there and fall asleep?" Sorry, I'm a Bob Dylan fan. At about 2 o'clock this morning, I decided I need to rewrite my whole talk. None of the stuff that Warwick was talking about hearing the stuff yesterday, although that did get in my head. I had chosen to do a very vulnerable talk. And at 2 o'clock this morning, I thought, I'm going to stand up there and cry for 20 minutes. But then it came to me, if I stand up here and cry for 20 minutes for being vulnerable, then you guys came here to see a 6 foot tall, 90 kg South African man cry for 20 minutes. That's what you came here for. So bear with me, I'm going to try to get through this. My name is Gareth Mare. I used to call myself a horse trainer, then an animal behaviorist. But as I ran out of things to call myself without being condescending to the most enlightened beings I know, I had to go with something one of my clients called me, which is a relationship counselor for horses and humans. The Journey On podcasts are not about horses. So let's talk about some drugs. So these talks are called TIC Talks, Teach, Inspire, Connect. When I got the invite about doing a TIC talk, I thought I was doing a PSA on drugs, because in South Africa, crystal meth is TIC. So enjoy my TIC talk. But funny enough, there is a direct correlation between substance abuse and addiction and connection. So let's talk a little bit more about horses. So I have this mental fan fiction I play about connection and how horses play a role in it. In this mental fan fiction, before horses were ever domesticated and they were living on the outskirts of human settlements, these horses used to observe us. And imagine that mare in the top corner there, standing, talking to her son next to her, and saying, sure, these humans are so disconnected, they're so separated. We need to do something to help them and teach them about connection. And I imagine her son saying, yeah, they need help, but I fear that they are going to entrap us, enslave us, abuse us physically and mentally. And her reply, I think you're right, let's do it anyway. The difference between connection and attachment is driven by fear. It's fear of loss, fear of pain, fear of lack. Connection is driven by love. Not romantic love, but love and connection are synonymous. The quote that got the ball rolling with me standing up here and being invited by Warwick to present and be on this podcast. Connection is a horse knowing that in whatever you ask of them, they are considered, that your request will never exceed what keeps them safe or what keeps them sane. We can change that a little. Connection is a horse, human, environment, anything around us, knowing that whatever we ask of them, they are considered. That is how we love. There's no difference between connection and love. This doesn't mean that fear is a bad thing. We had a lot of that come up yesterday. This thing of judging emotions is not helpful for us. The more I go through life, the less I believe there are good and bad emotions. Fear is helpful. It keeps us alive. It guides us to be stronger where we need to be. But when we need to be conscious of whatever is motivating us appropriately, what action does fear inspire? It either makes you run or fight. Sometimes you run away, and sometimes you're brave and run towards, but neither bring connection. A big part of my journey was losing my daughter, Cheryl. Sherilyn passed away at the age of 11 from a rare undiagnosed illness. She had a stroke on the 4th of August 2006 and fell into a coma. The decision was made to turn off her life support 4 months later. I can never begin to explain that feeling. And I could stand up here all day trying to put into words that struggle between that feeling of loss and the sense of responsibility for my remaining kids. How did I deal with this? I went 3 years without a single day of being completely sober. I will brag about the fact I do not have an addictive personality. When I was a teenager, and all the way up to now, I wanted to smoke. I watched people who smoked. Normally after a flight, you see someone, and they take that first drag of a cigarette, and it is just the image of peace. I thought, I want to be a smoker. And I used to buy cigarettes by the pack all the time, smoke one, and 3 months later find that pack of cigarettes. I do not have an addictive personality, but I did not want to be sober. So I spent 3 years at various levels of inebriation until the day I ran away to the mountains and found connection with horses. I didn't have to white knuckle it and go to meetings and try and figure out how to not stop drinking. I just didn't drink. It didn't even occur to me to be inebriated. And this is where our current approach to addiction is wrong, in my opinion. We make it about substances and sins and judgment. We don't look at the reason why people look for escape. If we think of an addiction as an undesirable behavior for the people that work with horses, when we have an undesirable behavior with a horse, we now know we don't try and fix the horse, we figure out the reason behind it. You've got to look for the cause behind the behavior. In Johann Hari's book, Chasing the Scream, he disputes the idea of chemical dependency being the leading cause of addiction. He gives loads of very scientific reasons and a lot of peer-reviewed studies to back up what he claims, but I'm only going to talk about one now. I do very much recommend you read this book, and the one that follows it is called Lost Connections. It's very helpful. But I'm going to take one story to highlight his point. The Vietnam War, it was prolific and almost encouraged for soldiers to take heroin. Just to deal with the stuff that they were going through, they were all taking heroin. So if our understanding of substance abuse, the paradigm is, it's all chemical, there should have been this massive influx of heroin addicts after the Vietnam War. And these guys went out and researched it. 90% of those soldiers never touched heroin once they went home. Only 10% went a bit wobbly, and the difference between them, the 90% had loving families. The soldiers that went home to Connection stopped using heroin with no program to help them. The opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it is human connection. Now, those of us in the room here probably don't need to separate that to human connection. For me personally, it was horses and animals in general. There's something very freeing about that connection with animals. It is non-judgmental, it is silent, it is devoid of ego and bravado. The current AA success rates is about 5 to 10%. So I am not saying that these current ways of dealing with addiction are always wrong. Those people that have successful recoveries from these kind of programs, those people are absolute superheroes. I have nothing but respect for them. But what about the other 90%? Our current way of fixing addicts is we gather all their loved ones and we hold an intervention and we tell them all how badly their behavior is affecting us and how inconsiderate this nuisance is. We threaten tough love to cut them off if they don't change. We disconnect from them even more. Can you imagine what the thought that goes through an addict's mind is? Alcohol doesn't leave. Heroin is always there for me. There is no expectation from inebriation. In running away, when I packed my bags, headed to the mountains, to those horses, I thought I didn't know where I was running to. But when I look back now, I think I knew. I just wasn't connected to the part of me that knew yet. I ran to horses. Something in me knew I had to run to horses to show me connection. I found it, and they taught me more than I could ever imagine. They showed me silent, accepting connection with no conditions. And when I thought I was done learning, they brought in their stripy reinforcements. The zebra in this picture is Zara. She was 100% wild zebra that lived on the same 480-hectare reserve I lived on. She started showing up for my morning coffee and meditation on my veranda. Yes, it was strange. Then she started listening to me play guitar on the veranda. And then she started following me around and watched me train horses every day. That's my morning meditation. As you can see in that photo, she was heavily pregnant at that stage. On the 14th of February 2021, she gave birth a short distance from that same veranda, and little Zio was born. Her name is a shortened version of the word Inhlizio, which means heart in isiZulu, which is the indigenous language of where I live. She was born with a heart on her chest. On Valentine's Day at Heartfelt Horsemanship, she joined her mother following me around training horses for 3 months. And then that little heart on her chest was broken. Quite literally. Her mother died in the middle of winter in the Drakensberg. And I know everyone associates Africa with heat and flies. But snow and below freezing temperatures are a regular occurrence in the Drakensberg Mountains. I had to help little Zio get food if she was to survive the winter. Now, everyone had advice on me over this time. Just give her a bottle. Just give her some food. Normally that's coming from people that don't have experience of wild animals. A 3-month-old prey animal, even with her following me around for 3 months, when she saw me coming at her with the bottle, she ran faster than I could ever. And if I did catch her, there was no way I was going to hold her. I had to win her trust without food, because for these animals, food is everywhere. As where there's grass, there's food. Why go to the predator for it? So I used attunement techniques to get her trust. To get trust enough for me to help her. Once I had her trusting me enough to feed her, I had a responsibility to keep her safe. She was trained to be handled in the same way as any of my horses, and she was a dream on the halter. She let me lift up her feet. She knew a backup, a hindquarter disengagement, and an impressive send on a circle in place. Some of that little springbuck that Warwick was talking about, that's her, and that's the baby that she had on my veranda. With Zio, developing communication with her was initially different to what I did with horses. Intensity of pressure equal to what I normally used would have her running the 480 hectares with a rope dragging behind her. But now, I use the same degree of pressure she taught me was enough with every horse I work with. Horses might tolerate more pressure, but she showed me how little we actually need. Okay. Horses taught me a lot about connection, but Zara and Zio took it deeper. There was less expectation. I wasn't training them to do something. There was no gain in me training them. Emily's giving, not trading concept comes into play here again. With Zara, I didn't even know what she wanted or why. I loved the feeling of her wanting to be with me. With Zio, there was a touch more. She would have died if I hadn't connected with her. Warwick talks about clinic participants saying everything and everyone in Africa waking up every day knowing that today might be the day they die, is that energy that people talk about from Africa. It's very real and it's very palpable, and yes, we feel it. But I don't think everyone feels it the same. My time with wildlife has me feel it as an overwhelming sense of gratitude for every breath, rather than a fear of every potential threat. Fear has us run from things or run towards them. And your fear-driven attachment might not have you lost at the bottom of a bottle or at the end of a needle, but it could be work, money, food, or other false symbols of worth. We chase money because we're scared of lack. We run from responsibility because of the obligations overwhelm us. We try to find any way to drown the pain of disconnection. That's attachment. But if we get true connection, free of judgment and conditions, it's hard to think of anything else we need. Even in terms of our equine goals, carefully assess your goals, assess your drive. Is it fear, fear of failure, fear of what people might think, or fear of not being seen as good enough by those around you? If that's your driving force, the best you get is attachment. If love is your driving force, connection will find you. It's like trying to grab a bar of soap floating in the bath. The more you grab, the more it darts away. But if you make your hand still and just under the floating bar of soap and just wait for it to settle, you've got the soap. Thank you, guys. That's all for me.
Just sit here and take that in. Look at that. He's finished. Just soak that up. Now you may leave.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness me. Wow. Whew.